It's a top, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you're gonna dig this.
The Maestro.
Fist hits the bag, 1, 2, and comes back. Single fist here. You hear that beat?
Think outside the box, and BO excellent on top of them, clocking them, send them back to the corner for oxygen. Golden gloves, I know myself, I know the game, it's not a game, I know the ring, I want the belt. Finding the rhythm, and hit them, split them, and touch them, and tip them, hit that six-pack with that quick jab. Uppercut the bro, making them fall down, breaking them all down, switch stands, tippy toe, in the hands, give them some more. Not Muhammad Ali, anomaly, a Mayweather, Pacquiao, prodigy in the midst of fist, this just S2, hot to rock, think out the box, you know I got the rock, speed back.
That would be a little drown.
Shit, alright, I hear you, B, I hear you, B. Shit was alright, you know what I'm saying? Alright, hey, nigga, peep though. If you SBA pay, you call me Young Repo, Old Debo. You can rapidly move your feet, so. But nigga, what's graphics to a cheat code? You know that Garrett's ain't for the hood, turn your cheetah into Cheetos. Flaming, nigga think he banging. I make you take your chain out of places you should tuck your chain in. But Lou, you can get it back if you pay him. I make you Smith a will if you ever think about
All right, and I'm back. It's Maestro coming at you right from the Bronx, New York. You know, I got a lot of stuff to say here on this topic as I brush the cat hair all over my New York Mets hats. My cat, Big Boy Coda, always likes to make his presence known on my YouTube channel. So let's just dust off Coda a little bit over there. And here we go. All right, I'm about to break a bunch of hearts right now. And a lot of hearts were actually broken, okay? A lot of hearts were actually broken this past Saturday. But you know what? I'll be honest with you, a lot of these guys that had their hearts broken on Saturday were not real boxing fans. All right. These were the general sports fans that love to turn up for the Canelo fight. All right. I grew up with a lot of sports fans like this. You know, they're an Arsenal fan until Chelsea becomes big, right? And they're a Bulls fan, and then all of a sudden Jordan's no longer playing on the Bulls, and then what? Oh, I don't know. I don't really like the Bulls anymore. Well, who's your team? I don't know. I like Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. Really? You weren't a Lakers fan before. But all of a sudden, you're a Lakers fan now. Well, you know, unfortunately, once you achieve the level of a superstar in any sport, all right, you got a lot of bandwagon guys, a lot of coattail guys, a lot of fair weather fans. All right, Canelo's no different. All right, Canelo's shown up, has done his thing from a very young age in the sport of boxing, and has made a lot of fans because of it, but also has attracted a lot of haters because of it. Hater number one, David Faitelson. ESPN pundit, works for the Spanish language ESPN. You see him all the time on these shows. Never will a good word, for Canelo come out of the work of David Faitelson. All right, looks like we got a Canelo hater right here. Big up to Die YouTube Boxing. I gave him a little dingy bell, all right? Thank you for tuning in. Die YouTube says, Canelo career is over with. No more paying judges. At next fight, he will get knocked out. Oh, okay. I put a little bass, little enthusiasm into that. You know, I don't know if that's exactly how Die YouTube intended for that comment to be read, but I read it with a little bit of drama, a little bit of bass, a little bit of intonation, a little bit of aggressiveness in it, because I've been hearing a lot of this recently. Or I've been hearing a lot of this from people that have been saying, oh, you know, Maestro, it's over. I told you this dude was underrated or overrated. I told you he was all hype. I told you. Look, Canelo got exposed. He got exposed, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I don't really think he got exposed, to be honest with you. Joe HABEEB, shout out to Joe HABEEB. He had a video this morning You guys should all check it out. I'm going to put it into the description box, where Joe was asking the question, was Canelo chasing greatness or was Canelo chasing the belts? Well, I think you can do two things at the same time, right? I think you can chase the belts and chase greatness. I would argue that he was chasing greatness through chasing belts. All right, because let's face facts, he wouldn't have gone up to fight Bivol if Bivol didn't have a belt. But I think that Bivol is definitely 1 or 2 in the light heavyweight division. I'd have to put him as 1A right now, to be honest. Even if I feel that he might outbox Better Beef. Better Beef has got 2 belts, right? Whereas Bivol's got 1 belt. All right, and we got to see what happens when the 2 of those guys meet up. We got to see how that fight plays out. It's the classic boxer-puncher matchup, all right, where it's like 65-45 or 70-30 boxer-puncher, because honestly, Bivol can punch and Better Beef can box. So it's not like it's 100-0 each way on the boxing versus punching department, but I'd say it's like 65-45, 70-30. You know, I think that's fair. Maybe even 60-40, okay, boxer, puncher, but somewhere within that neighborhood. All right, Anton M says, all these Nelo fans now want the Triple G fight. Ha ha, I thought he was washed. Okay, Team Batman Boxing says, Canelo still the most accomplished fighter in boxing. Your favorite fighter will not have 60, let alone 60, without getting dropped. Settle down, fellas. Okay. So let's get into it a little bit, because I said a few things here, right? I said Canelo, okay, Canelo is still undisputed. I think that's correct, right? Actually, let me get a little louder than that. Let's do that again. I'll do that properly. Canelo is still undisputed. Correct? I think that's not even debatable. That's an objective fact. He is undisputed at 168. All right, I don't think we can debate the fact that Canelo is still undisputed at 168. Number 2, Canelo's still the man. We can dispute that. If you dispute that in the chat. Let me know in the comment section. I would venture to say that Canelo is still the man. All right, because if you don't think Bivol wants a rematch with Canelo, you're playing yourself. If you don't think that Charlo and that Benavidez and that these other guys don't want to take on Canelo, you're playing yourself. All right, but we can debate that. I still think that Canelo is the man, but we'll get into that a little bit. Canelo is still pound for pound. Pound for pound. I think that's, well, first of all, I don't really do pound for pounds. But for those that do pound for pound, I'm gonna put him on there, all right? And then I'll explain my logic right there. I still think Canelo is quote unquote pound for pound, but I'll discuss what I think pound for pound is and what other people think pound for pound is. They can chime in. I see Haplotype is up in here. Big up to Haplotype. He's a pound for pound guy, all right? Let's also get into the last one. Canelo has the most options. I think that that's definitely true. All right. And if you disagree with me, let me know. Okay, but I don't really think you can disagree with that statement. Canelo has the most options, and it's still #King Nelo. Y'all must have forgot. Y'all must have forgot, guys. Come on now. All right, so look, like I said, all right, he's still all of the things that I described him at, all right? He's still all of those things. He's still undisputed. We don't need to debate that. He's still the man. Look, who's bigger than him? Let's go to he's the man. Who's bigger than Canelo in the sport of boxing? He went up, challenged himself against Bivol, All right. Yes, Joe, he chased the belt. But I would also say, yes, he was chasing greatness personally, right? I would say that. I'd say that he was chasing greatness. And honestly, right, y'all must have forgot that this happened, right? Was he chasing a belt when he did this to Caleb Plant? I would say he was chasing a belt. Yes, he obviously was chasing Undisputed. And to do that, you need to go through the guys that have the belts. And that was obviously Caleb Plant. Right, that was obviously Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant was the holder at that time of the IBF championship at 168 pounds. So Canelo's undisputed. Who's bigger in the sport than Canelo right now? Nobody. There was a time when it was like Canelo and AJ. And it was like, well, if you're in America, it's Canelo. If you're an AJ supporter, all right, you're in Europe, probably, maybe Africa, somewhere else, and you might put your vote in for AJ on that regard, right? But let's keep it real, right? AJ now, after the loss to Usyk, was a much more devastating loss, I think, than the loss to than Canelo's loss to Bivol, and I'll tell you why. Like, Canelo, he was outboxed, but he wasn't actually hurt. I would argue that AJ was hurt in that fight. And also it was AJ's second loss. AJ's first loss, of course, coming to Andy Ruiz, where he took that L at Madison Square Garden and was like knocked down multiple times and stopped. So if you've got a bigger name out there in the sport than Canelo, let me know. Supreme Tax is saying, what about Fury? Well, what about those pay-per-view numbers? We don't know about those pay-per-view numbers. Yes, he did 94,000 at Wembley. Does anyone have any reporting on those pay-per-view numbers, how he did at the box office? I'd really like to know. All right, huge fight, huge win. All right, beat a guy he was heavily favored against, but I don't know if he's of the level of Canelo. As much as I like him, as much as I think he's the best fighter in the sport, I don't think he's as big a star as Canelo. I just don't. Anton M is saying 600,000 for the pay-per-view. Do me a favor and drop your source for that. And I'd like to read it and look over it. All right, so once again, Canelo's still undisputed. That's a fact. Canelo's still the man. I think that that's a fact. You know, you could argue that it's a subjective opinion, but I would argue that it's actually a fact. Canelo is still the man. When you look at gate revenue, when you look at pay-per-view revenue, when you look at his payday, all right, because his payday for this fight was bigger than Fury's payday, as far as I know. All right, Supreme Tax, as far as I know, was bigger than Fury's payday for the fight with Dillian White. And his paydays over the last few fights, take his last three fights, they're definitely bigger than Fury's over his last three fights, as big as Fury has been getting paid, right? So we've still got him as being the man. So let's go into pound for pound now, all right? Pound for pound, all right? Let's look at pound for pound, all right? Oh, you saw IFL say it. I think he was guessing, though, Anton, if I'm going to be honest. I think he was guessing. All right, and as Johnny Gaffer says, the sources trust me, bro. That's a good one. Of course. All right, so Lennox agrees. Of course, he's still the man, all right? I would say he's obviously undisputed. That's an objective fact. All right, now it comes to the pound for pound question. So, first of all, what is pound for pound? Anybody who's been listening to my channel, anyone who's Yankees must have just got a grand slam. I live right by Yankee Stadium. They got a daytime game going on, and I just heard a big crowd noise. Maybe not grand slam, but probably home run. So, pound for pound. Let's talk pound for pound. All right. Somebody asked me about ESPN's list or brought it up. We're going to look up ESPN's pound for pound ranking right now. I'm going to bring it up on my screen. I'm just going to look that up because I honestly have not seen it as yet, and we can discuss that. All right. Pound for pound. You've got the story over here. a new pound for pound after Alvarez loses to Bivol. This must be what people are referring to, and I'm going to share that right now. All right, I'm going to share that right now. Let's have a look at this particular story, and here we go. All right, so boxing pound for pound rankings, a new number one after Canelo Alvarez loses to Dimitri Bivol. All right. Dimitri Bivol has officially entered the pound for pound conversation. Bivol scored a big upset on Saturday in Las Vegas, defeating former number one pound for pound fighter Canelo Alvarez. He retained his WBA super light heavyweight title, blah, 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 blah. You all know that. So they have Terrence Crawford as number one, Inoue as number two, Errol Spence Jr. is number three, Canelo Alvarez 4, Tyson Fury 5, Usyk 6, Vasyl Lomachenko 7, Dimitri Bivol 8, Shakur Stevenson 9, Estrada 10, and it looks like they've totally knocked out. Well, they're not even showing the name that I think should be on everybody's list, which is Kazuto Uyoka. But so here's what they say their formula is. The rankings are based on a descending point system with a first place vote receiving 10 points. So it's like ranked voting. A second place vote receiving 9 points and so on. A tie goes to the fighter with the highest ranking, and then the one with the most votes that votes at that ranking. Okay. All right. I look at it this way. Like I said, anyone who's followed me, anyone who's listened to this channel, anyone who's seen me on other platforms like the Boxing Voice knows that Maestro doesn't play Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I don't do that. I don't do the whole thing of, Maestro, Usyk is a supreme talent in the sport, but if we whittled him down to 147 pounds, he wouldn't beat Terrence Crawford. Okay. That's never going to happen. So let's not do the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, shrinking people down, blowing them up in size. Let's just look at accomplishment. Okay? Because I think everyone that's an objective boxing fan wouldn't argue that Tyson Fury would beat Canelo Alvarez in a fight. I think there are a lot of people who believe that maybe Alvarez would beat Usyk in a fight, but I think that after Saturday's performance, a lot of those people will revisit that assessment and that thought. All right. Yes, Haplotype. I don't like it, but that's the point of pound for pound. I get it. I just think it's ridiculous. So Maestro has his own rules for pound for pound. All right. I get to do that. All right. In the People's Republic of Boxing. All right. That's this chat. You got this chat here is the People's Republic of Boxing. All right, and being here on this chat, you've basically given me rights to be El General right now, El Comandante. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm going to be leading this discussion. All right, Comandante Maestro A is leading this discussion. That's what I'm doing. All right, here in the People's Republic of Maestro. All right, unless you guys decide otherwise. All right, we're looking at accomplishment when it comes to pound for pound. All right, and what do I mean by that? We look at accomplishment. I'm not going to shrink down Canelo to Inoue size, nor am I going to blow him up to 260 plus pounds, 6'9" to fight Tyson Fury. We're not doing that. We're looking at accomplishment. All right. And by the way, let's keep the heavyweights out of this because heavyweights typically don't do what these other guys do. All right, they typically don't do what other guys do. And what I mean by that is weight jumping. All right, so, if you want to include heavyweights in this list, I mean, okay, I guess you can include Usyk because Usyk's fought in 2 weight classes and has won titles in those 2 weight classes, right? Okay, so we can include Usyk, I guess, in terms of accomplishment. Because my greatest fighter of all time, I mean, I'm pretty clear about who that is, right? I'm pretty clear about who that is. And who that is to me is none other than Lennox Lewis, right?
Fighter in the world, on the planet. No guy test this man.
You prove that right now.
All right, you heard that? You heard that? If you didn't hear that, I'm going to play that again. Greatest fighter of all time. Let's hear him. Let's hear him go.
I'm the best fighter in the world, on the planet. No guy test this man.
No guy test this man. All right, that's Lennox Lewis. That's the GOAT right there. All right, that's the GOAT right there. But you know what? Lennox couldn't weight jump. Lennox couldn't weight jump. Lennox like pretty much 6'6", man. All right? Lennox fought most of his career above 240 pounds. He ain't weight jumping. All right? Does that mean that he's not great? Because he couldn't weight jump? Of course not. All right? No guy test this, man. You just heard. Matter of fact, I got to hear Lennox in his own words again because this is going to go into my new intro. Check it out.
I'm the best fighter in the world, on the planet. No guy test this man.
You heard it right there. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Tell me, okay, Fight Doctor's gonna tell me I'm wrong, but okay, we could get into that discussion. Maybe I drop the link a little bit later, but let's go back. I can't turn this into. I could probably turn every show into a Lennox show, but we're not about to do that right now. All right, we're not about to do that right now. All right, so again, haplotype. This isn't ESPN here, right? You guys are tuned in to the People's Republic of Boxing right now, led by El General, El Comandante, me, Maestro. All right, and in my pound for pound list, since we're gonna play pound for pound, all right, we're gonna play the little game of pound for pound. We're gonna do it with my rules. All right, and my rules say we're gonna go by accomplishment. All right, because again, again, my greatest fighter of all time, okay, is Lennox Lewis. All right. And he wouldn't be on anybody's pound for pound list because all of these guys highly rate the weight jumpers. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. We got to get back on topic. All right. We're talking today's age. All right. So I'm going to relook at this list again. And they have Crawford number 1. They got Inoue number 2. They got Errol Spence number 3. They got Canelo number 4. Can anyone here make an argument why Errol Spence Jr. should be above Canelo Alvarez? Other than the fact that he's undisputed? Because I really don't understand how you lose rankings on one of these lists by going up in weight, but by not losing your titles. So if Errol Spence Jr. was to go up in weight and lose to Canelo, that means that he drops on a pound for pound list? Of course not. So if that's the case, why does Canelo lose on a ranking for going all the way up and beating Bivol? And also, it doesn't really make much sense to me, this ESPN list, because if you're gonna drop Canelo for going up in weight and taking on Bivol, then why do you still rank them below Bivol? Because they got Bivol ranked at number 8. So somebody's got to explain that to me. All right. So he's undisputed. That's undisputed. All right. He's still the man in boxing. I'd say that that's clear, but people can debate that if they want. All right. And pound for pound, if he was number 1 before, how does he drop down any lower than number 1 by losing to a guy in an upper weight class? All right. So I don't get that. To me, he hasn't really dropped down much on any kind of pound. If I had a pound for pound list, which I don't, I just explain why I don't do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, really. If I was going to do it, I would do it based on accomplishment. Guys, Canelo's way more accomplished than Errol Spence Jr. Canelo's more accomplished than Errol Spence Jr. He is. And I'd argue, honestly, that he's still more accomplished than Terrence Crawford, because Crawford was undisputed at 140. Canelo's still undisputed at 168. And Canelo's run at 168 and at 160 and at 154, to me, have all been more impressive than Crawford's runs at 140 and at 135. Look at Canelo's opponents at 154. Lara, Trout, right? Mayweather in the loss, right? James Kirkland, Right, look at his run at 160, Triple G, Daniel Jacobs. Look at the guys he's beaten at 168. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant. Is Ndongo better than those guys? Or what about Terrence Crawford's opponents at 135, right? Is Gamboa better than those guys? So I don't really understand this methodology personally. I'm going to, add it again over here. They got Terrence Crawford, number 1, Naoya Inoue, number 2, Errol Spence Jr., number 3, Canelo, number 4. The only guy I think that's here that you could make an argument is more accomplished. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there because I don't believe it. So why am I going to make an argument for things that I don't really believe? As much as I credit Naoya Inoue, he has not been undisputed in any weight class. Do I think he's the best fighter at 118? Yes, I do. Is he undisputed at 118? No, he is not. No, he is not. He's not undisputed at 118. He's not. All right, he's not. And yes, he's gone up in weight. All right. Yes, he's done that. Yes, he's gone up in weight, and yes, he's done that. I still don't understand why he didn't fight at flyweight. All right, he fought at junior flyweight. I believe he skipped over flyweight, and then he went into 118 pounds where he is right now. You can argue that he was the most dominant in all of those divisions. I don't know why he skipped over 112, but he did. But he hasn't been undisputed. So Shelton Moore, you say how many of Crawford's opponents beat him? None. But again, Crawford's run at 147 is not better than Canelo's runs at 154, at 160, or at 168. If you want to come on here and argue that Crawford's run at 135 and at 140 and at 147 is better than Canelo's runs at 154, 160, and 168, I'm all for it. Matter of fact, I'm going to drop the link right now. All right, do me a favor, though. If anybody does join me, make sure you got headsets in. All right, that's my new rule. I don't care if you don't show your face or not, but you got to have headphones on, because if you don't, there's going to be too much feedback and it gets annoying on the screen. Too much echo and it gets annoying on the screen. So, again, this is in the People's Republic of Boxing, aka my subscribers base. All right. Terrence Crawford's runs at 135, at 140, and at 147 have not been better than Canelo's runs at 154, 160, and 168. They haven't. You take those three divisions, from Canelo. I don't think it's on right there. Fight Doctor, you're going to join the conversation. Sheldon Moore, you're going to join the conversation. Big up to Shelton, because he predicted Bivol. Not a lot of people did that outright. He wasn't bringing up the judging like I thought. I thought Bivol would do well. You know, I said that to everyone from Corey Erdman, who I'm in contact with, to Antonio from Boxing, from Supreme Boxing. I said it to Ryan O'Hara, who was beside me. We all thought that he was going to win the fight. We didn't know if the judges would agree. Shelton, congrats to you, brother. You called it straight up. What are your thoughts on what I'm saying here?
How do you become champion, Maestro?
You beat the man to be the man. Woo! To quote Ric Flair. Ain't that how you do it?
Yeah, so, people always want to use this argument about more impressive run. Look, these are the guys that had the belts. Crawford fought them. Crawford beat them. If they ain't shit, that's not his fault. He beat the guys to become lineal at 135. He beat the guys to become undisputed at 140, and he's beaten every 147 opponent that he's faced. I don't know what else the man can do.
All right, I can understand that. Fight Doctor, what do you got to say on this?
Well, so going into Saturday night. Fight Doctor's in the house on Rick James status. As always, good afternoon, gentlemen. So going into Saturday night, I had Canelo Alvarez as my pound-for-pound number one. Then he lost in a fight that, towards the end, became very one-sided, in my opinion. Bivol gave Alvarez a thorough boxing lesson. So for me, pound for pound is about what you've done, but then it's also about what have you done for me lately? And lately, Canelo Alvarez, the only thing you've done for me is, quite frankly, embarrass yourself by getting soundly and thoroughly outboxed by a guy who is 19-0. So given this new information...
Hold on. You're acting like he's some prospect, dog. Like he was 19-0, but he was the WBA super champ at 175 pounds, which is a weight class above Canelo. Do you get embarrassed by losing to that guy?
Well, so look, whatever trinket a guy holds, that's beside the point, and I'm not impressed because titles are a dime a dozen nowadays. So I'm not particularly impressed that the guy was a WBA super duper French fry champion. I don't care. What I care is about, well, what have you done to get to where you are? And Bivol, while a good fighter, hasn't done anything extraordinary. And fact is, he was 19-0, right? That's just the fact of the matter. Bivol was 19-0, and in those 19 fights, well, he's 20-0 now, but going into the fight, he's 19-0. And in those 19 fights, he had not established himself as the number one guy in the division. He had not beaten the best guy in the division, right? He beaten a bunch of never-wers and some-timers, okay? This is the fact of the matter, right? Now, I'm not saying that he was a bad fighter. That's not the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is that...
Wait, before you go on, rate him as a fighter, just quickly, and then go on with your argument.
I think he's a damn good fighter. Listen, he put on a clinic Saturday. So you have to give him his props. And I would not argue against him being on the pound-for-pound list. I would not make him number one, right? But I would not argue against, and I think it's warranted that he would get a spot somewhere in the top 10. I think that's warranted. However, Alvarez maintaining his spot as pound for pound number one is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but like I said.
So who you got at number one right now?
Terrence Crawford.
So let's say Terrence Crawford, right, goes up to 160 and loses to Jermall Charlo. Would he drop on your list?
Yes,
he would
drop.
Okay.
He would drop. Because again, pound for pound is about what you've done, but it's also about what you've done lately. Because it has to be about what you've done lately. Because if it's not about what you've done lately, if that doesn't figure into the equation, then maybe perhaps Roy Jones Jr. needs to still be pound for pound number one because his resume eclipses everybody's resume. Maybe all active fighters today. His resume eclipses all of them.
Prior to the Tarver loss or including the Tarver loss?
Including the Tarver loss.
Prior to the Glencoff Johnson KO or after the Glencoff got Johnson KO?
The point that I'm making is that if pound for pound isn't about what you've done lately, then, and if the argument is that Alvarez should remain pound for pound number one, then I would take it a step further and I will argue that maybe perhaps Floyd Mayweather Jr. still needs to be pound for pound number one.
Okay,
because Floyd Mayweather's resume is better than Canelo Alvarez's resume.
Let's extend that argument then, right? If it's only about what you've done for me lately, why do you give Terrence Crawford so much credit for beating Sean Porter?
No, my argument is pound for pound is about.
That's what you just said. That's just right.
My argument. Let me explain. Let me clarify my argument.
Okay.
This is what I just said. What I just said was pound for pound is about what you have done, but it's also about what have you done for me lately. Both, not one or the other, but both.
Right.
What you've done,
collectively,
but then also what you've done lately.
All right.
Let's
dissect that for a second. So lately, Terrence Crawford beat Sean Porter, a guy who had already lost to Errol Spence Jr., who, by the way, you don't think is, I don't know, where do you rank him pound for pound?
Top 5.
Okay, so he already got beat by Errol Spence Jr., right? He already got beat by Kell Brook. By the way, where do you got Kell Brook pound for pound?
He's retired. So
okay, so before the retirement, where did you have Kell Brook pound for pound?
I didn't think I had him in my top 10.
Okay, but he just
now at the time. Hold
up. He just
but at the time, hold on,
I'm gonna let you go. But he just beat a guy that already got beat by Kell Brook, right? And got beat by Errol Spence Jr. So if we're not and then you're giving him credit for that, but then I'm guessing you're also giving him credit for being undisputed at 135, which he was able to do, right, by beating Julius Indongo. And I'm guessing you're giving him credit, right, for being the former lightweight world champion, right? Because it can't be based on his run at welterweight, but go ahead, the floor is yours.
So Kell Brook, at the time he beat Sean Porter, was probably in the pound for pound, or arguably would have been a pound for pound top 10 fighter. Now, I don't recall exactly. This was some years ago. However, now let's talk about Sean Porter. Now, Sean Porter lost to Errol Spence. That was a split decision. That was a close fight, right? And, I'm not one of those people who, hang. For me, it's not about win or lose, but how did you look in the process of winning and losing, and who did you win or lose to or over?
Right, so let's dissect that. We're talking about Jeff Horn, right? Jeff Horn. We're talking about David Benavidez Jr., right? Let me do that right. We're talking about the Mean Machine, right? We're talking about Kell Brook, right? And then we're talking about a Sean Porter that lost to, again, we're talking about a Sean Porter had already lost to Kell Brook and the Errol Spence Jr., right? So
now, at the time,
hold up, I gotta clarify my question. Based on those wins, somehow those wins outweigh Canelo stepping up in weight and losing to a guy who you said had a trinket belt at 175 pounds. I just want to make sure that I'm at least in the realm of understanding what you're saying, Fight Doctor.
So now, pound for pound, in my mind, is about having done something that hasn't been done before. Now, Terrence Crawford stopped Sean Porter. That had never been done before. That's never been done before, right? In all of Sean Porter's losses, these are losses in close fights. Kell Brook, at the time he beat Sean Porter, I actually thought Sean Porter won that fight because it was close. That was a close fight. It wasn't like some type of one-sided affair. And at the time that Kell Brook beat Sean Porter, Kell Brook was undefeated, a top welterweight. So there's really no, if you look at Sean Porter's losses, there's really no shame in any of these losses because they were against guys who were at the very top or near the top of the division. And I think in most cases they were.
Is Bivol not at the top or near the very top of his division?
Yeah, but again, that needs to be put in its proper context, okay? Because the welterweight division has always been deeper than 175 in recent memory. And the 175-pound division currently is trash, to be completely honest.
All right, so again, let's run down the list. We got Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez Jr., the Mean Machine, Kell Brook. Oh, I forgot Amir Khan, guys. I forgot Amir Khan. All right. And Sean Porter. So all of those wins to you outweigh, I'm guessing, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and Caleb Plant at 168, correct?
No.
So they don't.
My argument is that those wins outweigh a loss to a guy who is 19-0. That's the argument I'm making. So again, things need to be put in their proper context.
So the cumulative effect of the loss, essentially. So we're like, because this is all based on Canelo just losing this fight, right? Because what I'm hearing is you're not critiquing Canelo's run at 154, correct?
Listen, there's no question that Alvarez had a damn good run at 154/155. There's no question.
Okay, what about 160?
He had I wouldn't call it stellar. I would say it was a good run at 160. The few fights that he actually had there.
168?
He had a good run. I think I would actually rate his run at 160 above his run at 168.
All right,
because he beat better opposition at 160 than he did at 168, in my opinion.
I got you, Shelton. It sounded like you wanted to chime in there.
168, easy roll. Nobody gave Billy Joe a chance. Nobody gave Callum Smith a chance. Nobody gave motherfucking Caleb Plant a chance. And I'm going back to Crawford. Didn't you pick Porter in that fight?
No, I don't believe I did. No, but no,
I hope not.
Crawford and
I hope not.
Crawford in that
look
fight.
Look at Benavidez, Mean Machine, and who was the other weight?
The welterweight run is Jeff Horn,
undefeated,
right? Mean Machine, Amir Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we David Benavidez Jr. I forgot.
Undefeated.
And then we had Kell Brook and Porter.
Kell Brook only lost to three guys.
All right. I don't know who had to take that call, but Fight Doctor, I think that was Shelton that had to take that call. You could take over if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, so I think Shelton was actually making Brother Shelton is making a damn good point that and I think his argument is Terence Crawford's resume as of late is better than Canelo Alvarez's. I mean, listen, say what you will about Sean Porter, but I don't think the masses of boxing fans were picking Crawford by stoppage.
Okay.
And remember, nobody had come close to stopping Sean Porter. And Terence Crawford, not only did he stop him, the corner threw in the towel.
Right, but we're talking about a guy that had lost 3 times already, right?
Okay, but again, those losses need to be put into perspective, all right? We're talking about losses to guys who were the very best or near the very best. And, at a time when they were, undefeated. Kell Brook was undefeated when he lost.
Was Caleb Plant undefeated? Yes or no?
Was Caleb Plant undefeated? Sure.
Yeah, when Canelo beat him. Okay. Was Callum Smith undefeated when Canelo fought him? Yes or no?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. And what about Billy Joe Saunders?
Now let me ask you. Yes, Billy Joe Sanders was undefeated. Let me ask this question. Now let me ask this question.
I'll ask yours and then you ask mine. Go for it.
All right. Does any of those aforementioned Canelo Alvarez opponents, do any of them have a name on their resume as good as Sean Porter?
Well, as good as Sean Porter losing 3 times? That's Sean Porter?
Well, so when what's his name? The British guy.
Callum Smith.
147 British guy. What's his name?
Amir Khan?
No.
Kell Brook.
Kell Brook. So when Kell Brook beat Sean Porter was undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have to put things in their proper context.
Right.
When Terence Crawford knocked out Sean Porter had never been stopped. He had never been stopped.
Correct.
And, he had never been stopped in a career.
He'd been badly hurt, though. He'd been badly hurt.
He'd been badly hurt in close fights.
He had been badly hurt by Adrian Broner, yes or no?
No.
Well, I thought he got hurt by Adrian Broner.
He won that fight.
Yeah, he won it, but was he not hurt in that fight?
Well, I mean, if you get knocked down, I guess you get hurt to some degree, but I wouldn't say he was badly hurt.
To me, was he hurt or not in any of his other fights? Yes or no? Or he's just like been indestructible his whole career, right? Even though he had 3 losses.
Well, I mean, if your argument is that, you know, he sort of loses points for having been badly hurt in tough fights, in close fights, then, you know, I don't really.
I mean, because basically what it sounds like is your argument for Terrence Crawford is really boiling down to this win against Sean Porter.
No, my argument for Terrence Crawford is that he didn't just lose to a guy who was 19-0. I'm sorry, but losses count, and you have to factor that into the whole equation. Now, yes, if your argument is that Canelo Alvarez had a stellar win at 154, I'm sorry, a stellar run at 154/155, I'm inclined to agree, but that was a long time ago.
All right,
relatively speaking,
we're gonna continue this in a second. I just want to ask you a few questions, though, right?
Yes, sir.
I want to understand exactly where you're coming from on all of this. All right, is Canelo still undisputed? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, for whatever that means. Okay, so I don't give undisputed a lot of.
He's undisputed at 168, correct?
He's undisputed at He's undisputed in the weight class that he did not clean out. So in my mind, it's hollow.
He collect all of the championship belts at 168.
He collected all the trinkets. Yes,
he collect. Okay, if you call them trinkets, I call them championships. He collected them, right? Is he still the man in terms of box office and et cetera? Is he still the man?
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course. That's even after having lost to Bivol, he's still the draw. But I don't know how that factors into his standing in terms of pound for pound.
Right. So right now we're talking about the pound for pound question, and we'll get right back to the pound for pound question. So I'd like you to explain to me why you have Terrence, if it's based on what you've done recently, right? Why have you rated Terrence Crawford higher than you've rated Errol Spence Jr.?
Terrence Crawford has done more collectively. And
no, you said it was about recent.
I said that factors into it. Yes. No.
Okay.
So it's about what you've done collectively.
Is it fair to say that Terrence Crawford's recent run has been at welterweight? Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So are you saying that Terrence Crawford's welterweight run is better than Errol Spence Jr.'s welterweight run?
No, that's not the argument I'm making.
Okay, well then in that case, you should have Errol Spence Jr. higher than Terrence Crawford by your criteria, if I'm following it logically.
No, my criteria is about what you've done collectively, but then it's also about what you've done recently.
So if it's collectively, why doesn't Canelo get the collective credit?
Because it's not about what you've done collectively. It's about what you've done collectively and what you've done recently.
Okay, and recently, Canelo fought world champion after world champion after world champion won all the trinkets at 168, correct?
No.
Recently he didn't do that.
Recently, Alvarez fought trinket holder after trinket holder after trinket holder, who in my mind looked like tomato can after tomato can after tomato can. Sheldon made an excellent point in that these guys that he was fighting recently at 168, none of these guys had a chance in terms of the betting public and how they saw what was going to happen.
Right.
These guys were all no-hopers.
Did Jose Benavidez have a chance when he fought Crawford?
No.
What about Kell Brook?
No.
What about Amílcar?
No.
What about the Mean Machine?
No. All
right, so then what you're saying then is you've got one criteria for Canelo and you got one criteria for Crawford.
No, I'm not saying that because
Sheldon, Sheldon, this is a handicap match. This is a handicap match, and I'm okay with that. So why don't you just tag in Sheldon real quick, Fight Doctor, and Sheldon, you take over real quick because
I'm tagging in my brother Sheldon Moore.
All I want to say, Fight Doctor can go ahead. All I want to say is Spence doesn't have a chance either.
Okay, so
excellent point. I see Crawford. Again, things have to be put in their proper context. Now, listen. If you look at Terrence Crawford's last fight, I think that Sean Porter was considered a live dog. Okay, I don't know that he was the favorite, but I don't think anybody thought that it would be a walkover.
Sean Porter, in your eyes, let's whittle this down. Sean Porter was a better opponent than Dimitri Bivol? Yes or no?
On paper, honestly,
Yes.
Oh, so right now a 3-loss. So just to be clear, ladies and gentlemen, a 3-loss welterweight, right? In the eyes of my two comrades here, Shelton and Fight Doctor, is a better opponent than an undefeated champion in a higher weight class who had beaten the likes of, I don't know, Joe Smith Jr., I don't know, Jean Pascal, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Everybody said, bro. Everybody said Sean Porter is the best opponent he's ever faced, and Sean Porter's work rate and activity is too much for Crawford. He's gonna wear him down. Everybody look at Dimitri Bivol is a bum. He shouldn't even be in the ring with Canelo, and Canelo's gonna smoke him.
I have a question. I don't
remember you saying that.
So I have a question.
I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about me because I told you. I told you.
We gotta go one at a time here. We gotta go one at a time.
Yeah, hold on, Fight Doctor.
Did you say that, Sheldon? That this was
told you when the fight got signed that Alvarez was gonna get beat.
I remember you saying that.
I told you that.
In fact, I was trying to remember your name yesterday when I was speaking to Joe. I don't know. I was tired, dog. I did a red eye from Vegas. I never slept, and my apologies for not being able to remember your name. But you were the only person that I heard going into this fight that didn't only pick Bivol, not by close, not by split decision, not by anything other than Bivol dominating the fight. So credit to you, right? 100% for that. So I don't know where you're coming from right now, where Bivol is somehow a worse opponent than Sean Porter, who was coming off three losses and talking about retirement before the fight.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the public, YouTube streets, they were saying that. They were saying that Sean Porter was great and Bivol was a bum. That's what they were saying.
Right, but what are you saying? I'm asking you right now. Are you telling me, not just me, but all the members right here of the People's Republic of Boxing, because that's what I labeled my community, right? Are you telling everyone that the 3-loss Sean Porter that fought Terrence Crawford is a better opponent than Dimitri Bivol? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, no, hell no. I would never say nothing that's stupid.
Okay, because it sounded like that's what the fight doctor.
Everybody.
What the fight
Porter
doctor
is the whipping boy of the welterweight division. Every time he steps up, he gets beat. That's a fact. You can't change that.
Every time Canelo steps up?
Every time Sean Porter steps up in competition.
Okay, I got you.
You can't debate that.
I got you. Yeah. So in my that's what I'm saying. So if that's the case, then why do you get so much credit for beating Sean Porter, but then you also lose so much credit for losing to Dimitri Bivol, a guy we just established was a better opponent than Sean Porter?
I think you just answered the question. A guy who was just established. Now, let me ask a question. Prior to Saturday, who had Bivol beaten? Who had he beat?
I just gave you some
Everybody
names.
He faced. Every fucking body he faced.
I'll give him the names right now. I'll give him the names. We don't have to talk about Umar Salamov or Craig Richards. We don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk about Lenin Castillo. But Joe Smith Jr. was a big win. Jean Pascal was a big win.
All right, so Joe Smith Jr.
Are those big wins?
Joe Smith Jr.'s claim to fame is having knocked out a 50-year-old Bernard Hopkins. That's Joe Smith Jr.'s claim to fame. And John Pascal, his claim to fame is having lost to the same 50-year-old, 45-year-old, 47-year-old Bernard Hopkins.
Actually, Joe Smith's claim to fame, if you want to be honest about it, more than that, was also actually coming back after the Bivol fight, beating Jesse Hart, who's a great Jesse Hart.
Who?
Jesse Hart.
Who?
Eladier Alvarez. Are we not crediting these guys? Are we not saying that Max? I thought he lost Maxim Blasov, but that's still on his record. All right. So, I mean, he's not really that bad of an opponent. I would rate Joe Smith Jr. up there with the guys that Terrence Crawford's been beating. Let me ask you this. Hold up. You're talking about Joe Smith Jr., right? Is Joe Smith Jr. a worse world champion than Jeff Horn?
No.
No, okay. So
let me say this real fast.
Hold up. Bivol beat Joe Smith Jr.
So wait a minute. Hold on a second. Stop. Wait. Stop. Wait. We have to talk. We have to revisit this Jeff Horn business, all right? Because
I'm going to go right to you in a second. Joe Smith Jr. is definitely not worse of a world champion than Jeff Horn. Jean Pascal is definitely not worse of a world champion than Jeff Horn. He's not. So
can I say this real quick?
These two. Okay, go. Go Shelton and then fight Doctor right after.
Real quick. And Joe Smith Jr. and John Pascal beat Canelo Alvarez. Both of them beat him.
So let's talk about Joe Smith Jr. as compared to Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn has the win over Manny Pacquiao. Exactly who has Joe Smith Jr. beaten? I mean, listen, in terms of resume, is night and day. That's just look, that argument that somehow Joe Smith Jr. at light heavyweight is on par with Jeff Horn. It's ridiculous. Because wait, hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. Jeff Horn was undefeated at 147 and was coming off the win over Pacquiao. I'm sorry, but there's nothing on Joe Smith Jr.'s resume, Dimitri Bivol's resume. Well, actually, I take that back. Dimitri Bivol, he just beat Alvarez. But going into Saturday night, there was nothing on either one of those guys' resumes that came close to Jeff Horn getting a decision over Manny Pacquiao. I'm sorry, but to make an argument that somehow they were on par, no, that's ridiculous.
Okay. I actually forgot what I was going to say there. So, and
then beside that, at the end of the day, Alvarez just got schooled by a guy who was 19-0, and Terrence Crawford is undefeated.
You keep saying 19-0. I mean, you keep saying.
Let me ask you a question. How many Hall of Famers? How many guys who are going to the Hall of Fame has Bivol beaten? If you remove the Alvarez win, who has he beat?
How many guys going to the Hall of Fame is Terrence Crawford beat?
That wasn't the question, sir.
No. I mean,
no. My question to you.
Your question. I'm going to answer your question. None. But you know what?
No. Wait. Stop.
Hold up. Then you can go. Most champions in the sport have CVs that consist of guys that aren't going to the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't know why that's a standard.
So Canelo Alvarez gets beat by a guy.
One second.
So here's your argument.
They say John Porter's going to the Hall of Fame. That's what they say.
That who?
They say John Porter's going to the Hall of Fame.
I don't know who they is. I mean, they is always the group or the reference that's cited. Until that happens, we'll see. I mean,
the only way Sean Porter gets into the Hall of Fame is if he buys a ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to the Hall of Fame, so they can say whatever they want. I mean, based on what?
So your argument, Maestro, is that, and if I'm reading you right,
yeah,
your argument is that a guy who just got beaten by a guy who's never beaten a Hall of Famer should be ranked ahead of a guy
that also has never beaten a Hall of Famer,
but is undefeated.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. His run at 154 is better than. I'm going to go for it. We'll go on this. Canelo's run at 154 is better than Crawford's run at 135, at 140, and at 147. The same is true about Canelo's run at 160, and the same is true about Canelo's run about 168.
What about Canelo's run at 175?
Well, I'm going to get into that. So right now, what you're telling me is losing to Dimitri Bivol, right, discounts the fact that Crawford's best win is against a guy that lost 3 times already.
No. What I'm telling you
that's what sounds like you're saying, though.
No, what I'm telling you is that losing to a guy who had never beaten a Hall of Famer, who never sniffed a win over a Hall of Famer, okay, discounts him from being ranked ahead of a guy who's undefeated
Crawford
with Terrence Crawford's credentials.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
Terrence Crawford hasn't beaten a Hall of Famer. We've already established that Bivol is a better opponent than all of these dudes that Crawford's beat at 147, definitely at 140, and I would argue definitely at 135.
I don't know. He has the win over Gamboa at 135.
Gamboa,
I don't know.
Hold up.
Gamboa was undefeated.
I deal in the realm of reality here. You're telling me, I want you to repeat what you said just so that I know I heard it correctly. You're telling me that Bivol is an inferior opponent to a guy that Crawford won who had moved up as from 126 where he had his best days.
Gamboa was undefeated. Now let's look at Gamboa's resume.
Hold up, gentlemen. You're telling me that Gamboa is a better opponent than Dimitri Bivol. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that Gamboa is undefeated. Was undefeated at the time. Crawford beat him. All right. Let's compare Gamboa's resume. Let's compare Gamboa's resume.
Before we look at resume, was Gamboa a lightweight?
No.
Was Gamboa a featherweight?
Gamboa was a featherweight, yeah.
Has Gamboa had any significant success in his career fighting at 135 pounds?
Prior to Saturday night, had Dimitri Bivol had any significant success?
You said you're going to go over.
So the answer to the question is no. Gamboa had done nothing at 135. Now let me ask you that same question.
Why are we giving Crawford credit for beating a guy who had done nothing at 135, and now you're saying that opponent was better than Bivol at 175? Really? Is that what we're saying?
No, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is that Bivol had done nothing at 175 prior to beating Canelo Alvarez, which, to be completely honest with you, Alvarez had done nothing at 175. I mean, you want to factor in his run at 154, which was a long time ago. And I agree, it was a good run at 154. He had a good run at 160. He had an acceptable run at 168.
Acceptable?
Acceptable.
Undisputed is acceptable?
Undisputed what? Undisputed. Listen, undisputed means nothing. It's meaningless.
Okay.
Listen, it has meaning because people pretend as if there's some substance to being undisputed, but in reality, there is no substance to undisputed. And I can easily deconstruct this whole concept of undisputed. I've done so in the past and can do so quite easily. All right. So having been undisputed means nothing, especially when you did not clean out the division. Did Alvarez clean out 168?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Because there's a guy who's right now. Let's look at ESPN's rankings at 168, and then you tell me if the division has been cleaned out.
Okay. All right, go for it.
Because there's a name. There's a name at the very top.
I'll bring up the ESPN rankings at 168. Okay. Right. And Shelton, while I'm doing that, the floor is yours.
No, I'm saying Ricky Burns was a champion in how many divisions?
One division?
No.
2 divisions, not more than 2.
Yeah. 2 divisions.
Yeah.
2 division champion. So that's more accolades than Bivol. Gamboa was a champion in how many divisions? Undefeated and on the pound for pound list when they fought?
Okay.
That's better resume. For all you resume people, that's a better resume than Bivol. That's the facts.
All right. So Bivol, also, just to be clear what we're talking about, all right, Gamboa better resume than Bivol, correct?
Collectively, no question.
I want you guys to agree to.
Listen.
We're gonna do. Hold up.
You said
we're gonna agree to basic facts and then we're going to have our subjective opinions based on some kind of, the logical argument. So, Sheldon, I'm going to go right back to you. You're saying that Bivol has a better that Gamboa has a better resume than Bivol at the time of the fights.
More accomplished, yes. 2 division champion to a 1 division champion. Ricky Burns.
I mean, I realize what you're going with the 2 division stuff, but is it easier or harder to become multiple weight world champions as you move up in weight? Easier or harder?
I think it's harder.
Right, exactly. So is it more common or less common for people that fight at 175 and above to be multiple weight world champions?
Oh, less common.
Much less common, right. So then why are we talking about guys being multiple weight champions from lightweight and below and using that as some standard to compare to people fighting at 175 pounds and above?
I can answer that question.
Hold up. You just brought that up.
I'm going to tell you.
No, Sheldon. You just brought that up when you were talking about. You just brought that up when you were talking about Ricky Burns. When you were talking about Ricky Burns and Bivol, right?
You said that beating Bivol is a more accomplished fighter than anyone that Crawford has fought. And I'm telling you, accomplishments. Now, I say he's a better fighter. I will say that. But as far as accomplishments, he is not. Because he's only champion in 1 division. These guys have been champions in multiple divisions. So they are more accomplished than Bivol. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's better fighters than Bivol.
All right. So
Gamboa's resume overall is better than Bivol's resume prior to Saturday night.
I'm going to go through some names, and I want just say.
Oh, wait. What happened to the ESPN top 10 168 pound list? What happened to that?
I was supposed to bring that up. Sorry, I got distracted. Let's look at the men's rankings, right? And we want to go to. They do it by shit. I'm looking for their rankings. They do it by division. Their website's a little complicated. I'm gonna have to use Google to help me. ESPN. What were we looking up again? On rankings at which weight class?
ESPN's current rankings at 168. So okay, you go to the boxing website and you go to rankings.
I got you. I got it right here. I'm going to share my screen. I got it right here, and I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. Okay. So we're talking about this, right? Actually, no, we're not. That's the wrong screen. Give me a second. I got to share another screen here. So I'm doing this all live, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So we're looking at divisional rankings, top 10 fighters per division. This is what we're looking for. We're looking at middleweight, super middleweight division, correct? And we're looking at the rankings. So we got Canelo number 1. We've got Benavidez number 2. We've got Plant number 3. Billy Joe Saunders number 4. John Ryder number 5. Daniel Jacobs number 6. Number 7, David Lemieux. And we got Darrell, Fedor, and Laron Richards. All right, so the floor is yours, Fight Doctor.
So if we just look at the top 5, now in my mind, you clean out, if you beat the top 5, 6 guys in your division, the division has been effectively cleaned out. We look at ESPN's rankings for 168 pounds, and we see that clearly Alvarez has not cleaned out 168 pounds. So that argument is moot. All right, stop. Alvarez has work to do before he can be considered having cleaned out 168, and before that hollow, quote-unquote, undisputed title of his means anything. I'm sorry, but no. So he has to beat Benavidez first.
Can you give me an example of like your standard of being undisputed?
Undisputed doesn't mean anything. I have no standard for being undisputed because it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless for me. In order, look, I defer to the.
I'll rephrase it. Let me ask you another question. Has Crawford cleaned out the welterweight division? Yes or no?
What? That's no, of course not.
Okay, so he hasn't. So your standard for Canelo is not consistent with your standard for Crawford because
I mean, but how is my standard?
I'm not done, Fight Doctor. You're gonna get the mic right back on you. Don't worry about it.
Yes, sir.
So your standard for Canelo is that he didn't clean out a division, right?
No, No.
But
So
wait a second.
again,
Crawford hasn't cleaned out 147. You got him at number 1.
so again, my standard, how I evaluate and how I rank fighters pound for pound is about what you've done collectively and what you've done lately.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Collectively and lately. And then I add it all up and see who's done more, who's done less, who's looked better.
Right.
And right now, when I do my math, Terrence Crawford comes out on top.
Right.
Because
not based
lately,
on
lately he has not lost to a guy who was 19-0.
Lately, he beat Sean Porter.
True. Lately, he knocked out Sean Porter, which had never been done before. Right? We have to see again. Well, wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Context is important.
Right.
Right? Now the context that you want to use when we're looking at Canelo Alvarez, that he went up and to 175 and beat a guy who was the WBA super duper French fry champion. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But realistically, he beat a guy who was 19-0, who honestly had never beaten anyone prior to beating Canelo Alvarez.
So hold up.
Never beaten.
So Jean Pascal is a nobody?
Who was John Pascal at the time?
I'm asking you.
Okay, so again, context.
Nobody.
Again, context is important.
Right.
Listen,
context is context.
If we're gonna use that logic, then maybe perhaps Trevor Berbick should be ranked pound for pound number 1 because he beat Muhammad Ali.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
that's what it sounds like.
No, I'm just asking you to qualify what you're saying because you.
Okay,
clearly,
so when
I'm not done yet. I'm not done. You said that he beat a guy who beat nobody at 175 pounds, who's held a trinket at 175 pounds, and who's 19-0, which is you're using to disparage Dimitri Bivol's record, obviously. So I just wanted on the record that Sullivan Barrera, right, and Jean Pascal and Joe Smith Jr. is nobody. I guess we can throw Craig Richards into the mix too, right? So
here's the point that I'm making:
right.
is that Trevor Berbick's victory over Muhammad Ali is not equal to Joe Frazier's victory over Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
There's no comparison to be made between the two. So you're talking about Dimitri Bivol having beaten John Pascal. Well, what was John Pascal at the time he lost to Dimitri Bivol? He was a nobody. Okay. Same can be said.
Why was he a nobody?
Well, let me finish.
No, I just want you to qualify what you're saying. If you say he was a nobody, why was he a nobody?
I'm going to bring the point home.
Okay.
Same can be said for Trevor Berbick's victory over Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was a nobody by that time. He wasn't a nobody in terms of his name or stature, but in terms of his standing at that time. Muhammad Ali was a nobody in the heavyweight division at the time Trevor Berbick beat him, as opposed to when Joe Frazier had beaten Muhammad Ali. Joe Frazier gave Muhammad Ali his first loss.
Got it.
He was by all in all fairness the legitimate and rightful champion in the heavyweight division at the time Joe Frazier beat him. So using your logic, somehow Trevor Berbick should receive as much credit for having beaten Muhammad Ali as Joe Frazier. I don't see things that way.
No. I'm not using your logic. I'm not using my logic. I'm using your logic because you're putting a lot of emphasis on this win by Terrence Crawford over Sean Porter. Because hold up. Because we've already established, and we've agreed upon. If we didn't agree on this, let me know. But we've already agreed that Canelo's runs at 154, 160, and 168 are all better than Crawford's runs at 135, at 140, and at 147. We're just not agreeing on what have you done for me lately. All right.
So why is it?
I got one question for you. I got one question for you because I was just explaining something. Okay. You say that you put so much emphasis on the Crawford win because Crawford had never been stopped, right?
Sean Porter win.
Sorry, Sean Porter had never been stopped. Let me ask you this. Had Caleb Plant been stopped?
No.
Was he undefeated?
Yes.
Okay. Had Billy Joe Saunders been stopped?
No.
Was he undefeated?
Yes.
Had Billy Joe Saunders ever had his orbital bone crushed?
No.
No. Okay. Callum Smith, was he undefeated?
Yes.
Was he a world champion when Canelo beat him?
No.
He wasn't?
The alphabet organizations do not get to decide who or who is not a world champion.
Was Sean Porter a world champion when Terrence Crawford fought him?
No.
So what did Sean Porter gain what did Terrence Crawford gain by beating Sean Porter?
A win over a credible opponent.
Okay, so Sean Porter is more credible than Callum Smith, than Billy Joe Saunders, and then Caleb Plant. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that Terrence Crawford collectively, again, if we're going to talk about 54, 60, 68, we need to also talk about 75, okay? You can't just magically remove 175 pounds in Alvarez's run.
Let's talk 175.
I'll
talk 175. What about Sergey Kovalev? Was Sergey Kovalev a worse opponent than, I don't know, Jeff Horn? I don't know, David Benavidez Jr.? I don't know, Mean Machine? I don't know, Amir Khan? Was he a worse opponent?
Actually, I think you could make the argument that he was. Sure.
Yes, because he had been beaten and knocked out before. Yes.
He had been knocked out twice.
Alvarez fought him. Yes,
and 1 point removed from being knocked out.
Yes.
And 1 point removed from being knocked out in this previous fight. So yes, I would be more than happy to make that argument. Yes, I would say that most of Terrence Crawford's recent opponents were all better than
Sergey Kovalev.
Than the Sergey Kovalev that Canelo Alvarez faced on the night that he
faced. Those guys were undefeated. Sergey Kovalev was not.
Amir Khan, ladies and gentlemen, Amir Khan, at the time of the loss to Terrence Crawford, was a better opponent than Sergey Kovalev. You just heard it right here.
They were both beaten
Sergey Kovalev, right? Right? Is that what we're saying?
They were exactly the same, Maestro. Exactly the same. Both had been beaten, stopped, and knocked out.
All right. So, I mean, look, guys, this is why I don't like pound for pound, because the criteria is all over the place. There's double standards, left, right, and center. Once you get to the bare bones of the argument, I mean, it's difficult, honestly, for me to understand, like, where, based on your criteria, Errol Spence Jr. should be ranked above Terrence Crawford. He should be ranked amongst Terrence Crawford. He has a better record at 147 than Crawford does, and he's beaten better opponents at 147 than Terrence Crawford, and he's undisputed. So, I mean, why are you ranking Errol Spence Jr. below?
Where is he undisputed at? He's not undisputed. He's not undisputed. He only fought in one division, where Terrence Crawford fought in 3 divisions. 2 Neil. 1 time undisputed. Errol Spence has nothing close to that. He's been in 1 division his whole fucking career. Fought a bunch of guys who fighters. Let's keep it real.
I thought it was about what you done for me lately, though. What has he done for you lately, Shelton?
He beat Porter, whoever was going to beat him.
He beat Porter. He beat Khan. He beat Brook. He beat Benavidez Jr. And he beat the Mean Machine. And he beat Jeff Horn, right? So hold up. That's better than Errol Spence Jr.'s run at 147.
Joe Spence Jr. Lamont Peterson, Marcia. He beat fucking Danny Garcia. He beat Sean Porter. Those guys are not that good. I've been telling you this. Those guys are not that.
I'm not asking you if they're good or not. I'm asking you if they're better or worse than Crawford's run at 147.
So if your argument is that
Crawford knocked all those guys out, Spence knock all those guys out.
So look, if your argument is that Spence has a better resume at 147 than Terrence Crawford does, then I would not argue against that argument. However, pound for pound is not about what you do in a single weight class. Now, pound for pound is about your resume collectively. All right, collectively, Terrence Crawford has done more. He's a more accomplished fighter than Errol Spence. Is this even open for debate? Is this even a question? Seriously, I mean, I think it's when you look at Terrence Crawford's overall body of work, it easily eclipses that of Errol Spence's easily, in my opinion.
I'm look again. I bring up the Spence argument, Fight Doctor, only because you're refusing to acknowledge what Canelo did at 154, 160, and 168 because you're saying it's a thing of the past, and your focus is mostly on what he's done recently. Evidently, recently being losing to a champion in a higher weight class in Dimitri Bivol, who you say has 19 wins only, who you say hell's a trinket, who you say hasn't beat anybody, despite the fact that he beat Jean Pascal and Joe Smith Jr. But look, I'm just trying to understand. Look, personally, I don't do pound for pound. I enjoy having these discussions. I do. But the reason I don't do pound for pound is because there's not one clear criteria, and it's difficult to obviously compare people when they're fighting in different weight classes. But I enjoy the intellectual exercise of talking all of this through. Sheldon's, okay, there you go.
Say it again. What'd you say?
No, I was just saying, for me, it's difficult to do all of this because obviously we're talking about comparing people in different divisions. So really, it just becomes an intellectual exercise of comparing accomplishments in different weight classes against opponents that neither people will probably fight in common.
I agree 100%, bro.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to switch the topic real quick. If you guys want to stay on with me and discuss this, you're more than welcome. So we've gone through he's still undisputed. We've gone through he's still the man in boxing, being the financial guy that is. We just had the pound for pound discussion. And now I'm going to talk about options in terms of Canelo and his future. The Fight Doctor, what does Canelo have to do to impress you should he decide to continue with his career, which I'm sure he will? What would you like to see him do?
Well, I mean, listen, I was impressed with Alvarez even before what happened on Saturday. So, I mean, in my mind, there's nothing he really needs to do to impress me. But I will say this. If Alvarez wants his name to be enshrined with the Sugar Ray Leonards and the Chavezes, and, if he wants to be amongst those rank of fighters, he has to go and beat Bivol in his next fight, in my mind. That's what he has to go and do, right?
Will it depend if it fits at 168 or at 175, or does it have to be at 175 in your eyes?
It has to be at 175 pounds. As far as I'm concerned, taking the rematch for Alvarez, taking the rematch at 168 is a lose-lose situation. Here's the reason why. If he loses, the loss now has a double impact, because in the first loss, you have the built-in excuse of, well, I'm not a light heavyweight, and he beat me in his weight class. I'm not a natural light heavyweight. But if Bivol comes down to 168 pounds and beats you and does it easier, right, and stops you, or just beats you, period, well, that excuse goes away. And whatever credibility that you would have had losing the rematch at 175 evaporates. It goes into the ether. And that will just haunt you and that will haunt your legacy. That will just, in my mind, it does a tremendous amount of harm to his legacy. As opposed to if he goes up and beats Bivol at 175 pounds, well, then the loss becomes less of a deal.
Got it. Sheldon, what does he have to do next? And then I'm going to bring in Jimmy and Puro Sur and Jimmy. Just hold on for a sec. Sheldon, what do you think he's got to do not necessarily at 168, moving forward as a fighter?
He's already impressed me. He's an impressive fighter. He's got an impressive record. We're already impressed with Alvarez. Let's keep that clear. Alvarez needs to stay away from that Russian because he can't beat him at 75 and he can't beat him at 68. The guy's a better boxer than him, and he's going to beat him. Leave him alone. Go back to 68. Beat everybody they throw at you at 68 if you can, and retire. He's too small. I told you that 4 months ago, Maestro. I'm telling you now. He's too small for 75. Better Biev rolls over him like a tank.
Joe Smith probably stops him because if he gasses against Joe Smith, he's going to sleep. We know Bivol beats his ass. Zerto Ramirez stops him. I mean, who's he going to beat at 75? Nobody.
Yeah, I mean, the 75 is wide open. Well, not wide open, is a tough road for sure. I mean, if I'm managing Bivol, you know, if Maestro management gets the call and gets that consultancy check, I'm telling Bivol to do exactly what he said. Go down to 168, do the second rendition of You Got Any Excuses Tonight, Roy, right? Beat Canelo, and then move back up to fight the winner of Smith and Baturviev for all 4 belts at that weight class. Puro Sur, you're up, brother. How's it going?
What up, Maestro? What's going on? Fight Dr. Shelton, brother. What's going on?
Good to have
Shout out to Puro.
What do you think about all of this?
Euro.
I think he should go, avenge his loss. You know, he fucking looked like shit, you know. I finally got to see the fight. Saw it a couple times already, you know. I didn't think he got dominated, to be perfectly honest, but he did fight like shit. His defense was the only thing that was on point. No jab, you know, fucking pure power punches, and Bivol was blocking them all, you know. They're like almost like telegraphed.
Yeah, so, you know, no controversy there. You're not one of these guys who maybe you're saying that Canelo won. I haven't met one yet.
I thought Bivol won.
The only person I've actually here think that Canelo won the fight is Canelo.
Right? Yeah.
But moving ahead, because we've already had the pound for pound discussion, right? Moving ahead, I think he's got a lot of options. I'm going to lay some of them out, right? I'm going to lay some of them out, and I'm going to bring Jimmy on in here. Jimmy, just hold on real quick. The options I'm going to lay out are him rematching Bivol at 175, him rematching Bivol at 168, him taking on a Benavidez or a Charlo at 168. You know, what would you guys like to see? Jimmy, I'm going to go to you first. Jimmy, you're up. Well, Jimmy's not there. I'll go back to you, Shelton. Of those fights I've laid out there, what would you like to see?
I would like to see Alvarez go back to 68. If Bivol wants to fight him there, fine. He'll beat him there also. I'd like to see Canelo Alvarez fight Benavidez. I'd like to see him fight Andrade. He's at 68. I'd like to see him fight if he ever moves up to 68. The guys that are there, the guys that are in your division. If a guy wants to move vision him. But stay away from that Russian, man. Stay away from 75. All those guys are too big. They're gonna beat you. Stay at 68 and stay away from Bivol. Leave him alone.
I got you. The fight doctor. What are your thoughts? You said he needs to rematch him at 175. Should he not do that? Who does he have to fight? Because you said he hasn't cleaned out 168 pounds yet. Who does he have to fight to clean out 168?
Well, if his intention is to clean out 168, then he has to fight Benavidez. But here's what I think Alvarez should do. Now, coming off of a loss, and then a loss, you know, of this nature, I don't think fighting a guy like Benavidez is in his best interest. Okay. He has to look, if he wants to preserve his legacy, he's going to have to go back up to 175 pounds and beat Bivol. That's just what he's going to have to do, in my mind. However, I think if I were advising Alvarez, I would say, look, in your next fight, you want to fight someone credible, but someone you can beat, and, you know, fight in a fight that is going to be confidence boosting, something that's going to restore your confidence. A winnable fight against a credible opponent, which is available. He should fight, in my mind, he should fight Gennady Golovkin. Beat Golovkin at 168 pounds, okay? And then see Bivol in a rematch at 175. He beats Bivol, then the loss goes away. It doesn't go away, but it's, it's a write-off. It's a loss that can be written off because, well, I had a bad night. I didn't train hard enough. I was distracted. Whatever the hell excuse you want to come up with. But beat Golovkin at 168. Restore your confidence, okay? Go back to 175. Beat Bivol. And then, you're right back where you started. And if I were advising Alvarez, that's what I would suggest he would do.
Yeah, the Triple G fight isn't a bad fight. Puro Sur, do you think that people maybe will lose interest in it to a certain extent because Canelo lost to Bivol? I mean, the counter to that is that, people might see him a little bit more vulnerable now that he's lost and might see it as a more competitive fight. What do you think about the fight with Triple G at this point?
I never really wanted to see a third Triple G fight, but Canelo wanted to do it for the fans, but he himself didn't care for it much. Props to Bivol for beating him and, kind of like possibly putting himself instead of Triple G in this next fight or in the third fight. But me personally, Bivol or Jamal. That's what I would like to see.
Bivol or Jamal, not Benavidez?
Not yet. Benavidez is he still needs a bit more experience, in my opinion.
You think so?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The defense, the defensive liabilities that that Benavidez presents. Bivol was like, if I'm not mistaken, is the best defensive boxer. Connect wise.
Right.
I think he's like holding his opponents to like 12%.
Mm-hmm.
He held Canelo to 17%. And Benavidez, he's like the prototypical what they say Mexican style is, blocking punches with your face. I just think he's just, how many fights does he have? Like 18, 19, whatever. I just think he just needs a bit more experience, shore up that defense.
Is anyone here interested in seeing Canelo against Zurdo by the end of this year or maybe by mid next year?
I like that one too.
Yeah, I like that one. What about you, Fight Doctor?
I think Alvarez needs to stay away from guys who can punch at 175 pounds. He needs to just stay away from 175 pounds, period. He has no business in that weight class. Alvarez is not a light heavyweight. He just isn't. If you go back and look at the Bivol fight, Alvarez was hitting him with everything but the kitchen sink, all right? And I'm sorry, but Bivol didn't move, right? And Bivol is not the biggest, strongest guy at light heavy. The big, strong light heavyweights give Alvarez all kinds of problems. All right, I'm sorry, but no, he needs to not fight at 175 pounds.
Well, there you go. And I think I've gone to everybody on that. Or Sheldon, actually, I haven't asked you, Shelton, about the Zurdo fight for Canelo. What are your thoughts on that? Either by the end of this year or mid next year. Is that something you'd like to see? No, it doesn't seem like Shelton is still with us. Any last words, Fight Doctor?
Yeah, I'm an Alvarez fan. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see what he does next. I think that Mike Tyson gave Alvarez some excellent advice the other day, which I noticed during the fight, which is that Alvarez was not using his jab. And to be completely honest with you, you go back 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, Alvarez has not been using his jab. And look, as you go up in weight, playing the punches game, well, it just doesn't work. You're hitting these guys at 154 and they fold like a deck of cards. You hit these guys at 160. Some of them were folding like deck of cards. And 168, you're fighting tomato cans who were folding like a deck of cards. Well, you meet a real 175 pounder and all of a sudden your money punch doesn't have the same impact. So guess what? Now you have to go back to boxing. Okay? The basics, which is what we saw from Bivol. Basic, beautiful boxing. Liberal use of the jab. Subtle movement. Excellent counterpunching. Okay? Laying traps. Just a clinic. And on the other side, in Alvarez, you just had a guy come forward, no jab, swinging for the fences. I mean, it almost looked a bit asinine, what we saw from Alvarez, to be completely honest. So, look, Alvarez is going to have to go back to boxing if he wants to, fight at 175 pounds. And look, the secret is out. Okay. And going forward, guys are going to be looking at the Bivol fight, taking notes. All right. And coming up with strategies and game plans and giving you problems if you don't go back to boxing. So, yeah, my final thought is I want to see Canelo Alvarez go back to boxing using your jab. Just boxing 101.
Got it. Fight Deck Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a great discussion. Anytime I go back and forth with you, I have a lot of fun. Love hearing from you, brother. You take care.
You do the same, bro. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
100%. Puro Sur, back to you. Any last thoughts on any of this?
Not too much. I'm interested in this weekend's fights. I'm interested to see what path Canelo chooses. I'm actually what key thing for me is that I actually kind of got a bit disinterested in Canelo ever since he became undisputed. I didn't think Bivol was going to win. Just like most people, I thought everybody had Canelo picking. I actually didn't think Canelo was going to lose for the rest of his career. But this loss and the way kind of like laid an egg or whatever, kind of gave me a little bit more interest. I don't know, rekindle, I guess, a little bit for Canelo, see how he bounces back,
Yep.
He hasn't had too much adversity, in the last few years or whatever. It's good to see, that's what I like about boxing, fucking you take a loss and see how you come back. So I'll be interested in seeing that.
100%, I agree. I'd love to see how he comes back. I honestly think that a loss is what happens when you challenge yourself, especially against bigger guys. So no shame in that. Puro Sur, thank you so much for joining me, bro. I hope to cook with you again.
Maestro, thank you. And one more thing, I don't know if Ernesto Amador told you what's up. I went on his channel real quick when I was with you, and I told him, hey, say what's up to my homie Maestro and shit. I don't know if he was like an actual teacher or it was you.
No, I saw him out there, bro.
Yeah, no, I know, and then I'm like Amador, saludos, and I'm like salúdeme a mi camarada Maestro, está enfrente de usted. And I don't know, he's reading the comments. I don't know if he understood me.
Oh, cool. This was when he was outside of the T-Mobile doing his live?
Exactly. Oh, yeah. They were kicking him out, too, and he was getting like a little pissed off because they were kicking him out and shit.
Kicking us out, which made no sense. I thought it was a public space, but I guess it was private property.
Looked like public space to me, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But I love his channel. I'm a subscriber.
Yeah, me too, man. Actually, one of him and Ellie's the first ones I started watching, back in the day.
There you go. All right, Puro Sur, thank you so much, homie.
Take it easy, Maestro. Peace.
Right, you too. Take care. All right, so that was Puro Sur. And Sheldon, you weren't available last time I went to you. I know you got those business calls. Right, Sheldon always getting these business calls during the day. Sheldon's a businessman, but if he's free, any last words, Sheldon? Let's see. Sheldon's probably still on his call, so I'll just leave it at that with Sheldon. So, yeah, guys, pretty good discussion. Just to quickly review it, and I'll go through the comment section if anyone has anything else that they want to say. Look, Canelo's still undisputed. We established that. He's still the man in terms of financially. We established that. We had a back and forth discussion about, his quote unquote pound for pound status. You guys know that Maestro, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I don't play Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but we had a pretty good discussion about it. I kind of went back and forth with Shelton, and especially with the fight doctor, going over their kind of methodology and going over comparing Canelo's opponents to Crawford's opponents and both of their standings in the sport. All right. And I still think that Canelo has the most options. What are those options? Bivol, 175, big fight. Bivol, 168, bigger fight. Because if you're saying that Bivol's coming down in weight, all right, and he's eliminating the weight reason, #WeightGate, all right, well, now people may think, oh, well, Canelo did only lose because he was going up in weight and it was a bigger guy. I am kind of more interested in this now. We also have the Triple G fight. Maybe Canelo looks a little bit more vulnerable, right, than he did when he was fighting prior to the loss against Bivol, right? Maybe now the Triple G fight looks a little bit more competitive, looks a little bit more appealing, right? We've got David Benavidez versus Lemieux, the winner of that, which most people think is David Benavidez, right? We've got Jamal Charlo. Should he get past Sulecki, which I think most people think he will? We've got that as a potential fight, right? So, you know, other people have thrown out the John Ryder fight in the UK as a potential opponent. But there's one guy out there that I'd really like to see himself against. I would really like to see him against Canelo, test himself against Canelo. Right? Because I think if he takes on Canelo and loses, hey, it's like Floyd losing to, it's like Canelo losing to Floyd. All right? But let's say he pulls it out against Canelo. It's a big fight, big win. I'm talking about the undefeated WBA regular champ, David Morrell Jr. out of Santa Clara, Cuba. Sorry, I was about to say Santiago de Cuba. That's not where he's from. That's where Guillermo Rigondeaux's from Santa Clara, Cuba. I'm talking about David Morrell Jr. All right, I'd personally love to see that as a fight. Canelo would never take that. Maestro management would never, get that consultancy fee and then tell Team Canelo to take on that fight because it's too risky, too little reward. All right. But looking at what Anton says, he said probably going to be Triple G. Bivol is a horrendous style matchup for Nelo. Jesus says, Maestro, what about boxing-wise, the lack of improving all-around boxer? He just has power and counter puncher. I think that was going fine for him when he was fighting at 168. It's just that when you step up against bigger opposition, I mean, these things have a tendency to even themselves out a little bit or become negated, right? Steve, you say, I want the Ryder fight just for the opportunity to see Canelo live. You're obviously in the UK, right? You're a Queen's Park Rangers fan. A lot of people don't know about that London football team, but it's another one out there. All right. But there are more interesting fights out there. I agree. All right. And Fight Doctor, again, here you go. He needs to stay away from the Cubans. Yeah, I would definitely advise him to stay away from young David Morrell Jr. So, look, last words, all right, of the day. All right. They're going to go to my man, all right, Lennox Lewis. Let's hear it.
I'm the best fighter in the world, on the planet. No guy tests this man.
Prove that right.
No guy tests this man. That's definitely true. And like I said, I got a show coming up. All right, it's going to sound a little bit like this.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right, it's called The Final Round. All right, so I want everybody to get ready to rumble with me on that. I'm going to be doing it Sundays. All right, moving forward. I'm going to be doing it Sundays. All right, moving forward, because it will be, ladies and gentlemen, it will be the final round.
This is the last round.
All right, so there we go. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. All right, thank you for another great edition here of Punchlines.
Yeah, all right. I hear you, B. Shit was all right, you know what I'm saying? All right. Hey, nigga, peep though. If you SBA pay, you call me Young Repo, Old Debo. You can rapidly move your feet, so. But nigga, what's graphics to a cheat code? You know that Garrett's ain't for the hood. Turn your cheetah into Cheetos. Flaming, nigga think he banging. I make you take your chain out of places you should tuck your chain in. But Lou, we can get it back if you pay him. I make you Smith a will if you ever think about Jaden. Quit the parading, lighten up like Raiden. Act your age, stop acting like you Asian. Talking like a shaman, make this trip short like a ride around the Caymans. All that shit you saying, this nigga acting like he was balling out in Chrome Hearts. Came out with a bag smaller than some phone parts. Fuck out of here.